Narito ang programang totoong-totoo, Tambayan sa DWIZ. Programang magliliwanag ng ilang mahahalagang mga issue. Tambayan sa DWIZ. At ngayon, narito na sila upang maghatid ng saya sa bawat Pilipino. Sa programang Tambayan sa DWIZ.
Magandang tanghali. Welcome to Tambayan. Ako po si Trixie Cruz Angeles. We were supposed to interview somebody today for a party list, pero we will have to reschedule that for either Thursday this week or next week. So in the meantime, dami naman pong pangyayari na kailangan pag-usapan. But before all that, I just wanted to bring this up kasi padating naman si Attorney Glenn Chong, so mag-usap muna tayo tungkol dun sa mga social media things that are going on. And as well, we all know na may pangyayari ngayon sa Ukraine. Russia has, well, quote unquote, I'm hesitant to use the term invasion yet, but has entered into Ukraine and seems to have exhibited acts of aggression. Ang careful ng language, no? Nag-iingat-ingat. Kasi syempre, we still have diplomatic relations, diplomatic and trade relations with Russia. Very careful din yung response ng Philippine government. Although, agree tayo dun sa mga sanctions that are being called against Russia for their acts towards Ukraine. We maintain our relationship with China, with Russia, and all that. And China has also responded with what do you call this? Studied neutrality on Russia's actions. Right? We know that there is no with Russia being in the Security Council, malilimit yung actions of the United Nations regarding what is going on. And in the meantime, we are, as usual, watching this carefully because na-affect din tayo. Na-affect tayo through the increase in fuel prices, which have been happening steadily over the past month, actually more. So, sabi ni Ma'am Delcy, for me, invasion is a sweeping statement for now, so tama lang. But my point in here is that the issue isn't as simple as saying kawawa naman Ukraine, di ba? It's there are larger forces at work here. The seemingly attempt to marginalize or actually to ikulong yung Russia, mapaligiran siya, yung refusal na isama sila sa NATO, and very recently, yun na nga, Ukraine is suing for wants to continue talks with Russia, but in order to do that, ang ginagawa niya is he's asking the European Union to include them. Of course, tinutuloy pa rin syempre na hindi na pumasok sa NATO. They're going to the International Court of Justice, which is all unlikely going to happen, given the fact that they're doing it at a time of aggression. At a time na, yun na nga, may nangyayari na aggression na ganito. Ano yung ginagawa ng Ukraine? Alam nila, halimbawa, yung pagpunta sa International Court of Justice, hindi naman nila makakaladkad ang Russia doon unless Russia agrees to cede its jurisdiction. So para magkaroon ng jurisdiction ang International Court of Justice, iba to sa International Criminal Court iba pa yan. Ang International Court of Justice, ang pwede lang dalhin dyan ay are sovereigns, so countries or organizations that are really large, like let's say the Catholic Church, that act like they are states. Right? Corporations that are so big that they are as though they're also a state unto themselves. So yun yung mga pwede lang humarap sa ICJ. Pero para magkaroon ng kaso, makaumpisa ang kaso, kailangan both parties will agree to put themselves under the jurisdiction of the ICJ. Ngayon, kung ikaw ang nag-file ng complaint, given na yon, kinikilala mo yung jurisdiction ng ICJ. Kasi syempre, bakit ka pupunta doon tapos sasabihin mo, hindi ko kinikilala yung power mo over me, but nevertheless, gusto ko magreklamo. Hindi pwede yon. So Ukraine goes, admittedly, Ukraine admits the jurisdiction of the ICJ over it for this particular matter. But question is, will Russia do that? We all know the answer. It's not gonna happen. So, nevertheless, they're going to the ICJ. There are two theories on this one. Is that they're going to try anyway because it's desperation time, or pinapakita ng Ukraine sa mundo, ina-underscore nila na wala na kaming pupuntahan. Anong gusto ninyong kumbaga naudyok kami, okay, nandito na kami sa sitwasyon na to and we are exhausting everything. There's no NATO, there's no EU, there's no ICJ. Saan kami pupunta? That's why do they want the world to see this? Because they're probably going to negotiate with Russia. Kumbaga, it's like they're saying na, I hope you understand. I have no choice but to sleep with this enemy because none of you are going to help me. That's one view. I hope I'm wrong on this one, but that's one point of view. Meanwhile, funny thing happened. I pointed out, kasi merong mga discussions tungkol dito nga sa Pilipinas, yung West Philippine Sea at saka yung Mutual Defense Treaty, kasi nga binabanggit ng ilang mga senador na iba naman tayo, hindi tayo katulad ng Ukraine. Ang Ukraine nga hindi pinapasok sa NATO. So hindi automatic na i-defend sila ng mga NATO countries. At saka, hindi sila makakapasok sa NATO ngayon kasi hindi naman gugustuhin ng NATO tumanggap ng isang bansa na mapipilitan na silang i-defend umpisa pa lang. Bakit nila gugustuhin na i-take over yung ganyang klaseng problema? Whereas, dito naman sa Pilipinas, meron tayong Mutual Defense Treaty. So, ano yung Mutual Defense Treaty na yan? So, yung isang senador, sinasabi niya, hindi, automatic yan. Pagka tayo, dadating ang US. Automatic yan. Kailangan nila tayong pagtanggol or tulungan. No, they don't. Or, sige, sabihin na natin na kailangan nila tayong pagtanggol. Yung level ng pagtatanggol na yan will be up to them. Okay, so, but as an aside, while this was happening, we're discussing this on my page, on Luminous by Trixie Cruz Angeles, na may paglinawan pa dun sa mga nakikinig sa radyo, baka gusto niyo mag-follow. Okay. So, when I was discussing, ayan na, lumilitaw na, ito yung nakakatawa dyan. Tuwing nagdi-discuss kami on something like this, like foreign policy and international law, may magtatanong, sino ba to? Expert ba to? Hindi ba niya alam na ang pagbabasa ng batas, specialized yan? Alam ba niya yon? Parang, minaldita ako. So, the funny thing about yung pagmamaldita na ganyan, may sumagot, sabi, unang-una, bugado yan. So sabi ko, dagdag nyo na rin because I did study international relations in the University of Minnesota, so I know a little bit. Not the expert. I will always say, for instance, that among the top bloggers, Rogando Sasot is possibly the expert. Or at least as far as I can see. I mean, syempre marami naman nag-aaral ng international law at international relations. So there's no monopoly on expertise or on knowledge or in-depth knowledge, ganyan. But there are people who are very good at explaining these. And SAS is one of them. Kudos to SAS. Gayon pa man, I'd like to also say that, well, hindi naman tayo, I will defer to SAS in case of a difference of opinion, but hindi naman tayo magkukomento ng wala sa lugar. So, sabi ni Ma'am Edith, I love it, Attorney Trix, nagmamaldita. Sorry, masama ba yung word na yun? Masama ba yun? Hindi, okay lang daw. So, hindi ako sinesensor ni Boss Winner ngayong araw na ito. Di pa naman ako nasa-sensor, no? Di pa? Tayo natin. Baka maging senador si Attorney Larry pag wala siyang oras, kailangan may magmana. So, okay, sige, hindi po ako yan. Pero ang punto ko dito is, minsan yung ibang tao, pag natatalo na sa argumento, mamimersonal na yan. Marunong ba siya ng ganyan? Sino ba siya para magkomento ng ganyan? Well, international law is a second-year law subject, so medyo napag-aralan nga naman namin yun. So we study it's private and public international law, and then there's also another subject called special problems in international law, where you participate in what is known as a Jessup Moot Court competition, which is an international competition on precisely that, international law. So, I'm happy to say that at least if I'm going to talk about something like that, meron kahit paano kami pinag-aralan tungkol doon. So, ano lang, minamaldita lang ako ng ganon. But we know that people are getting hit because for a long time, nobody was really discussing or putting online, ano ba tong MDT na to? Of course, people like JP have talked about it, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. has talked about it, President Duterte has talked about it. Pero yung maikli lang yung Mutual Defense Treaty natin. It was created back in the 1950s. And as Ferdinand Marcos Sr. had once said, well, by the time that the U.S. gets around to helping us out, quote-unquote, in accordance to their own constitutional processes, which is written right in the MDT, by the time they get around to doing that, wala na tayo. Diba na we're wiped off the face of the earth. May mga nagtatanong din tungkol dun sa Mutual Defense Treaty, bakit sa Pacific side lang? Bakit Pacific lang? Maintain peace in the Pacific. Well, first of all, nasan ba tayo? Pangalawa, that was what they agreed on. But it's, attacks from the Pacific side, if you're going to look at it carefully, attacks on that side. So, kailangan mutual defense. So, ibig sabihin tayo din, may obligasyon din tayo, pero we can also tell them na, ito lang ang kaya namin social media lang. So, ito lang po ang kaya namin Sige, magpadala kami ng medical aid. Ayan, pwede yan. Ito lang po ang kaya namin, yung mga responses na ganito, na kung sakali dumaan sila sa Pilipinas, ibabaan namin sila. O hindi pwede yung mga refueling stops dito. It's up to us to determine. Same with the U.S., let's say the U.S. is attacked on the Pacific side, kailangan natin tulungan sila. On the other hand, pag tayo yung in-attack, then the U.S. can say, okay, magko-convene muna ang Congress. We're going to talk about this. We'll get back to you kung ano yung response namin dito. Or, pwede rin namin, sabihin na, di ba? Social media lang po kami. Tutulong. O, di ba? Ganyan. So, we really cannot count on these things. Kung baga, if we're going to get into, if we're going to force an act of aggression, remember may mga acts of aggression that were precipitated. In other words, it was forced on them. So, it's no longer an act of aggression but an act of defense. And there's an argument that hindi tinanggap ng court dun sa US versus Nicaragua. So, as Sas always tells the story in US versus Nicaragua was that the United States interfered in Nicaragua. They planted bombs on the beaches and so on, and even interfered in the elections in Nicaragua. Nicaragua brought the US to court, the International Criminal Court, and the U.S. actually agreed to cede its jurisdiction for purposes of that case. Talo yung U.S. dito. Of course, the Nicaragua was never able to execute on their win. Parang, di ba, binariyahan na lang sila. But one part of the decision was about the concept of a preemptive strike. Yung konsepto ng preemptive strike is wala pang act of aggression on the other side, pero defensive ka na. You're defending yourself. Before that, because if you wait for the strike, you could be decimated. Oh my gosh, sorry for that. Decimated, as in, annihilated. Gone. Parang abo. Tapos na. So, ang sabi ng US, what we were doing was a preemptive strike. Sabi ng ICJ, di siguro. Hindi yan yung tipong may intercontinental ballistic missile na napapunta sa inyo and you hit back before that missile could land. That could possibly be a preemptive strike. Or they're firing up the missiles and you hit them just before those missiles made liftoff. Yan maintindihan nila as a preemptive strike. But in this case, it wasn't that sort of a preemptive strike. They were saying things about that baka umabot yung issue sa shores ng US, baka umabot yung it was drugs and all that and gun running and all of these things, baka daw umabot, maapektuhan ng US. So inunahan nila by doing all of these things. And so the ICJ said, walang ganon, walang preemptive strike, can't do that. Russia will be too smart to cede to the jurisdiction of the ICJ. But it's not like as if they don't have any defenses. The problem is the war that is being waged on media or social media is it's like a different animal altogether. And it's all about using the same facts to twist things, to present your side. So yes, it's true that halimbawa, Ukraine and Russia share a long history, about a couple of centuries long, maybe 3, of a shared history together. And in fact, sinasabi nga ng Ukraine, the entire civilization of Russia started in the Ukraine. It's probably true. But it's also true that Ukraine has a distinctive cultural identity. It could be that they're just expressing their uniqueness, that they have to be away. There's no Mother Russia for them anymore. So they are in the process of constantly evolving in tinatawag nating national identity or right to self-determination. Yung karapatan nila na maging magkakaiba, a distinct culture, ini-express din nila yan by refusing to kowtow to Russia or anything like that. There was a time na ang Russia deeply involved dahil meron silang sinusuportahan na presidente ng Ukraine. Hindi na nangyari, natanggal na yung tao na yun. And now, nag-i-evolve ang Ukraine away from Russia. So, yung mga arguments like a shared culture and all of that, they're arguments na sila na yung mag-usap. I think that the world has done Ukraine a disservice by the US-NATO intervention and, the tendency of the EU to be neoliberal democracies. Good afternoon, Attorney Glenn, in the house.
Hello, Attorney Trixie. Magandang tanghali sa inyo, boss.
Good
afternoon.
Hi daw.
Ayun yung boss ko. My best boss.
Okay. Ano pa?
Parang pinag-uusapan mo NATO,
Yeah, I was looking at the history of Ukraine. Ukraine was actually a separate kingdom.
Yeah,
the 9th century, 9th, 12th, 10th century.
10th century.
9th, 12th, ganyan.
Parang meron yan silang, yung parang equivalent ng emperor eh.
Yeah. Well, Germany had the Kaiser.
The Kaiser. Magaling kasi
Ukraine
history eh.
Its own. Yeah, parang Tsarist din sila eh.
Oo.
Very similar.
Parang similar sila sa Russia but they are not actually. Pero yung eastern side, yung Donetsk, tsaka yung isa pa, dalawa yan eh. Yung Donbas region. Russian-speaking talaga yan sila. And they actually associate themselves with Russia rather than...
Even the Crimea, di ba?
Ang Crimea actually, nabasa ko rin yun. It was actually part of Russia.
Yeah.
And during the USSR,
nilipat
sa kanila sa
isa lang naman
Ukraine.
Sila.
Because isa lang naman sila, satellite state sila. Russia was a satellite
USSR
state.
Pa sila na,
so is Ukraine. Pero, well, of course, Russia violated their agreement in 1994, di ba? Yung give up nila yung... Kasi they have they would have the third largest nuclear armaments.
Yes.
Kasi nandun ang karamihan, di ba?
Oo, nandun nakatanim.
Tapos binigay nila sa Russia in exchange for a promise na hindi sila lulusubin. And Putin disregarded it all. True.
Although naiintindihan ko nga that Putin had to act.
Yeah, pero para kasi sa kanya, existential threat ang NATO. The expansion of NATO to Ukraine. Next door neighbor na niya yun eh.
At napaligiran na sila. They were going to isolate Russia. Hindi ko maintindihan kung bakit parang Cold War pa rin.
Yung mentality?
Yung mentality
because Putin was a KGB spy in Berlin for a long time. So, parang
very good one apparently.
A very good one apparently. I'm ready to concede that. Although I feel I feel strongly for Ukraine and its people because in any war, ang civilian population naman talaga ang kawawa eh. Oo.
The semi-good news is that Russia lost one battle.
Which
yesterday.
One?
It's not a big one, but diba?
But they've been unable to capture the entire Ukraine, diba?
They're holding back.
Given the superiority of their armaments.
Actually, I think they're holding back.
I don't know. Yeah. Di kasi 75%.
They can't afford then the carnage.
Yeah, because
hindi nila kakain.
The world will
still
turn
part of the
against
world.
them totally.
Kailangan hindi nila kakayanin yung post-apocalyptic
yes,
nila.
pag marami rin ang civilian deaths. Oo.
Pwede sila talagang talikuran ng mundo and hindi nila kakayanin yan. They have very,
it's unfair also for the Russian people.
Yeah.
Because the decision is a political one made by their leadership, not necessarily by the people of Russia. Kasi di ba within Russia there are dissenting opinions. Maraming nagpo-protesta although kukulong ka.
But what I wanted to hear from you is your thoughts.
What is it about?
Rappler.
Ay, yung paborito natin.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure
that they would not be confused.
I'm sure nabasa mo na yung statement ng National Press Club before.
Yes, National Press Club, Solgen.
Solgen, yes.
At yung sagot ng Rappler.
May sagot na sila?
Hallucinating daw si Solgen.
Oh gosh.
Diba?
Pero may ultimatum si Solgen kay Comelec hanggang March 4. That's on Friday. Kung hindi, magpa-file sila ng action against Comelec for this. Ang sa akin, Attorney Trixie, mga kababayan, simple lang yun. Ang pinag-uusapan natin dito ay, ano ba yun? Voter engagement and fighting disinformation.
Fact-checking.
Fact-checking. Ayun, kasama na yun sa fighting disinformation. Okay. So, kung ganun, alam naman natin na in any story there are two sides, di ba? In the elections, yung mga magkatunggali, that also represents two sides of the debate. Pero malinaw naman si Rappler, yung killing niya doon kay Pink Lady.
Against BBM,
kay BBM. Oo. Para bang hindi hindi kompleto ang araw ni Maria Ressa at Rappler pag hindi nila natira si BBM. At hindi nila napuri si Leni Robredo.
You cannot let the day pass.
Yeah, they cannot let the day pass. Basta yung ano nila, any article may twist against kay BBM palagi yon. And palaging pinupuri si Leni Robredo or whatever. So, hindi pwede ang Rappler by no means, even the loosest of all standards, hindi siya qualified to be the Comelec's partner.
The loosest.
The loosest of all standards.
That's another thing, Comelec has not shown that they subjected anybody to standards.
That's a good point. Very good point. Ano ka palang pinagbasihan ng Comelec pagpili kay Rappler?
Dati na daw sila.
What?
2013 daw, Rappler.
I didn't remember.
I don't even remember.
I don't remember.
Hindi sila ganun kagaling. Not even a blip on the radar.
Yeah. Marami naman ang qualified. For example, ang malinaw na qualified dyan, National Press Club.
Yes.
Kasi it's an aggregation of all media outlets. Ang reach mo dyan, TV, radio, online.
Media, social media.
Broadsheets. Pati mga tabloids.
Yan.
So actually, mas pervasive, mga kababayan, ang reach ng National Press Club. Kasi kahit yung boss ko dito sa harap kasama doon Itong istasyon na to kasama doon.
Yes.
So, by sidelining imperiously ang National Press Club at ang pinili ay si Rappler, what's the standard that was used?
Yeah.
Anong standard? Meron ba silang, basta siguro kasi sabi ni Maria Ressa sila.
Sila lang daw nag-apply.
Sila nag-apply.
Sabi ng Rappler yun,
No, even if Rappler is the only one that applied, hindi ba, Attorney Trixie, prudence dictates na tingnan muna natin yung iba because everybody is a stakeholder in an election.
Saka asan yung standards? Kailangan ba? Baka yung standard nila against BBM. Number one, qualified na kagad.
Pro Leni Robredo.
Leni.
So check. Pro Kiko Pangilinan. Check. So yun yung standards ng Comelec.
Galit sa mga social media influencers. Check.
Galit sa atin. Check. Galit kay Glenn Chong. Check. Malaking check.
Mas malawak yung reach natin kaysa sa kanila.
Oo nga So, I really support, we support Solicitor General Kalida in writing that ultimatum.
And going to, kasi demand letter yan Gave Comelec 5 days.
5 days ba yan? 5 days kasi 28 hanggang March 4. Oo. So, and then by March 7, kung hindi nila unilaterally i-resend yung MOA, then the Solgen will act for and in behalf of the people. Kasi malinaw naman na partisan decision ito ng Commission on Elections. Hindi dapat. Di ba?
Yeah.
So ano na kayang mukha ng eleksyon natin kung si Rappler will wield the axe against all of us? Pero alam mo na ito ni Trixie, mga kababayan, ang tingin ko, ang target ni Comelec ay online content. Online content kasi nga, di ba, kung ang target ng Comelec is honest, ang lahat ng tao, di ba? Voter engagement, fighting disinformation. Kung ang target ng Comelec is yung buong sambayanang Pilipino, dapat ang kinuha ay National Press Club, di ba? Kasi nandun yung tabloid, broadsheet, radio, TV, online. Bakit si Rappler na ang presence ay online lang? Kaya doon mo makikita yung target ng Comelec, which is dishonest.
Yep.
Well, dishonest na nga sa boto natin eh. Pati ba naman yan, dishonest pa tayo. Oo.
Ito pa, patola tayo today, so I'm going to go after one of the trolls online. Sabi tayo yung
tayo, okay.
Losers, next! Sabi, ang lakas ng loob, losers, so what can you do about it? Nada, hanggang angal lang kayo attorneys, next.
Sorry.
Di nyo pa rin na-gets, kasado na nila yan.
Alam nyo, magpapile si Soljen. Siya yung defender namin.
We don't have to do anything.
We don't have to do anything because the best lawyer around will file it for us as protector of the people.
On our behalf.
On our behalf.
Iyak ka na lang.
So,
by the way,
hindi kami
track
losers.
record ni Soljen? Ano wala? 90+%? No, wait, what? 100? Or something like that. Lalo naman when it comes to Rappler.
Pero I think for Comelec, in the interest of fairness, equality, ibigay nyo yan sa National Press Club because I know that the National Press Club is up to the task.
At saka representative siya.
Yes. Cross-section nga ng buong media eh. Kaya nga, nabuo yan eh. As a bulwark of democracy, as a bulwark against censorship. So, bakit? Wala ba kayong tiwala sa members ng National Press Club?
Yeah.
Comelec?
Sumulat diba ang NPC to Comelec?
And it's a scathing objection. Spotty record, yung existence, legal existence. Spotty record, una. Pangalawa, yung
lack of corporate personality.
Lack of corporate personality. Pangatlo, yung may-ari ay kinasuhan ng libel na convicted ng RTC.
Questionable ownership.
Tapos yung binigay ng foreign influence.
Yung Philippine Depositary Receipts.
But I think all that's behind this is the woman in New York. I believe.
Yeah.
Ay, pangalanan na nga natin. Ang duda ko dyan, ang nagmaniobra niyan ay si Sino nga ba yun? Nakalimutan ko. Nicolas. Nicolas Lewis.
Si Ma'am Loida.
Well, that's just my suspicion kasi pinupush na yung Rappler because Lenny na Lenny.
Yan. So, tama.
Meron pa tayong komentuhan?
Go. Ay, teka. Siguro after the break.
Okay.
Magbabalikan Tambayan. Oras natin 12:32 ng tanghali.
Muli nating balikan Tambayan sa DWIZ.
Nagbabalikan Tambayan, kasama pa rin sa impilan, Attorney Glenn Chong.
Magandang tanghali po.
Ako po si Trixie Cruz Angeles.
Na-memorize ko na kung anong sasabihin mo pag live ng on-air.
Hindi binubuksan ko kasi yung MOA.
Yung MOA ni Comelec at ni Rappler.
Oo. Ito yung mga obligations.
Sige, habang hinahanap mo yan.
Responsibilities of Rappler.
Okay.
Awareness building efforts.
So, yung awareness building efforts, kikiling yun kay Lenny Robredo. Against kay
Engaging content. Yan.
Enriching content?
Engaging content.
Engaging content.
So, ibig sabihin, pwede nilang lagyan ng mga sparklers.
Yes.
O kaya yung mga
Smartmatic.
Yung mga sabit-sabit na words to spark engagement. So,
yes.
Diba?
Kung si Smartmatic sa Malota, nagmamaniobra, si Rappler naman doon sa wordings.
Online
content.
So, of course, shareable infographics, educational videos.
Kikiling na naman yan pagoy kay Lenny Robredo. Tatamaan na naman nila si BBM. Titirahin na naman nila.
Ito, monitoring and verification efforts of critical concerns on the ground.
Okay, pati yung content natin. Malawak ang
coverage. Kung may mangyari during
election day, sila magbe-verify.
Exclusive sila.
For example, doon sa presinto. Yung mga bantay, I assume maraming bantay kay BBM kasi 65% ang boboto sa kanya. 2 in every 3 Filipino voters will vote for BBM and Sara. So that's what the survey says. So yung isa, paghahatian pa ng natitirang mga kandidato. Kasi yung dalawa, for every 3 Filipinos, yung dalawa, para kay BBM at Sara yun.
Correct.
Yung isang natitirang Pilipino, paghahatian pa yun ng mga natitirang mga kandidato, marami sila. So, yung isa paaral sa kanya. Diba? Yung isa nikap na lang. Okay. Now, ang assumption is maraming tao doon magbabantay para kay BBM. What if kung may bumoto doon at minagic ni Smartmatic ng makina at hindi lumabas yung pangalan ni BBM at ni Sara at nagre-reklamo yung botante at nare-record natin sa video, papalabas natin sa social media, eto, darating si Rappler. O tapos sasabihin ni Rappler, fake news yan.
Correct.
So, that's the evil power that COMELEC has given to Rappler. Kaya dapat matanggal si Rappler dyan at palitan ng independent, non-partisan organization.
At yung media arm, Move PH will work with Voter Care Center to assist in the response to common complaints like missing names on voters lists, improper campaigning by candidates, long queues, incidents of vote buying, voter intimidation, cheating attempts, election-related violence, etc.
Attorney Trixie, wait lang. Anong pangalan ng organization?
Move PH.
Move PH. Mga kababayan, paalam ko lang po sa inyo na habang nag-hearing kami sa Senado, may mga nakaupo doon na resource speakers.
Okay.
Natandaan ko, yung mga pangalan, may PH sa dulo palagi. May PH sa dulo. I just forgot. Basta may PH sa dulo. Then, pinadig up ko, there are actually Smartmatic's fronts. Mga front ni Smartmatic yan, basta may PH, allergic na talaga ako, basta may PH sa dulo.
Okay.
Remember, may mga organization dyan, matagal ako sa Senado, 12 years ako doon, nag-a-appear ako palagi sa hearing, suki nga ako ni Coco Pimentel. Minsan, nag-walk out ako sa kanyang hearing. Pag hindi ako pinapagsalita, nag-walk out ako publicly para papabalikin ako. So, nakikita ko yan dyan, na may mga PH, 2 or 3. Palaging may PH sa dulo. And then, pinadig up ko, they have ties to Smartmatic. So, ngayon, ang tanong ko, hindi rin ba ito manipulation ni COMELEC at Smartmatic with Rappler together?
Yeah, no? Kasi Move PH supposedly is Rappler's civic engagement arm. Connects online and on-ground communities to take action on issues that matter to them digitally.
Ayun na nga, Attorney Trixie, mga kababayan. Basta may PH sa dulo, duda ako dyan Because I have that experience in the Senate hearings.
Ako basta may name na Rappler.
Sa akin, ang ano lang is PH sa dulo. Duda na ako niya na may connection sa Smartmatic. I'm sorry, pero that's what I learned over 12 years of fighting this syndicate na ang tawag ay COMELEC at Smartmatic. Komisyon o eleksyon, pili ka lang. Magbabayad ka, walang eleksyon. Kapag hindi ka magbayad, mag-eleksyon tayo. Tapos dadayain ka naman ni Smartmatic.
The COMELEC online show. So this is
ito na yung presidential debate ng COMELEC.
Pwedeng yung COMELEC commissioners lang na inaano, pero kasama na yan.
Yung debate ng COMELEC na ang ingay-ingay ni James Jimenez, hindi naman ako sinasagot dun sa ebidensya ng dayaan na lumabas sa House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal.
Wala, dead ma
Actually, Attorney Trixie, quickly lang mga kababayan, ang palagi kong example nito, ito, James Jimenez, I'm sure nakikinig ka. Or open your eyes and your ears. Your mouth if you have to. Sabi mo sa amin, wala kaming pinakitang ebidensya ng dayaan. Now, here we are. May pinakita na kami, election protest case number 19-015, Villafuerte versus Bordado in the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal. Now, I came to know also that in the case of Matugas versus Ace Barbers, hindi rin nagtutugma yung bilang ng balota at yung sinabi ng makina. Pangalawa na yan, House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal. Hindi nagtugma. Matugas versus Barbers. Okay, hindi nagtugma Ang nandun sa balota at ang doon nilabas sa election return. Now ngayon, dapat sagutin nyo yan. O, ito yung pinakamahalagang issue na dapat sagutin ng Comelec at Smartmatic. So, siyempre, dinala siguro nila si Rappler para yun naman ang expertise ni Rappler eh. Instead of di ba, pina-flag down tayo na fake news. Kaya nga, di ba, I posted yung kanta na Smart Magic in my wall. I posted it in 2018, then I reposted it today. Tapos, yung mga specific parts ng kanta, nilagay ko, tapos nilagyan ko ng evidence para hindi matanggal as fake news. Kasi sabi ko, hindi yan, may basis yan. Nung ginawa yung kanta na yan, may basis yan. So,
hindi aksidente yung lyrics.
So, iniisa-isa ko yung basis. Sabi ko, wag niyong tanggalin yan ha, hindi yan fake news. Now, Attorney Trixie, punta tayo doon sa isa pang issue.
Okay.
Yung teleprompter. Nakita mo yun? Nakita niyo yun?
Of course.
Mga kababayan.
Of course.
Mga bossing. Hindi dinideny ni Lenny Robredo, ha? Hindi niya dinideny. Nakita po noon, nandun siya, ang nakalagay po doon sa teleprompter, ako po ay Bicolana, pero para na rin po akong Ilongga. Tapos meron pa doon sa baba. Attorney, parang part yan ng introduction eh. Parang part yan ng greetings pagka nagabi po sa inyong lahat mga kababayan. Ako po ay si Attorney Glanchong, ako po ay taga-Biliran, ganito, ganyan. Pero parang na rin na po, look, sabi nga ni Cisco, ang nanay niya ay galing din sa Eastern Samar. Kasi it's part of you endearing to the audience.
Yes.
As a speaker, as a public speaker, it's also yun din yung part na ginagawa ko.
Yes.
I need to endear myself to the public para makuha ko yung atensyon, para makinig sa akin. But in this case po, hindi po spontaneous yung pagsabi ni Lenny Robredo, pati greetings nandoon pati greetings mga kababayan nandoon sa teleprompter.
Kasi kung ako yung mga...
Sorry ang greetings hindi na po yan babasahin. It should come out naturally. So, it should come out naturally. Hindi po yan binabasa sa teleprompter. I can give you an example, Attorney Trixie. One time I was invited by the University of Santo Tomas. Ang audience po namin ay mga pare, madre, at mga theologians. Mga theology students. Ang nauna pong speaker ay si Ambassador Henrita de Villa.
Okay.
Naku, ang topic niya. Siyempre, mga madre, pare, at mga theologians, mga students of theology. Siyempre, ambassador of the Philippines to the Vatican. At santa ang dating. Sabi ko, ako ang mauna magsalita. Kasi talo ako dito eh. Ambassador to. Ako, hamak lang ako. Isang hamak lang akong abogado. At ito santo eh. Pag sinabi mong abogado, makasalanan.
Ang daming association.
Oo nga. So, sabi ko, pwede boss ako mauna? Kasi santa yung pangalawa eh. Kung siya mauna, dihado ako ng gusto. So, but I listened at the back. Naku, ang topic niya ay one good vote. Siyempre, spokesperson din siya ng Comelec, de facto. PPCRB. So, dinala niya yung audience na from the Philippines to the Vatican and back. Siyempre, yung audience na palakpak ng palakpak. Nagdasal na ako doon sa dulo. Sabi ko, Diyos ko, paano ko ba ito kukontrahin tong anghel, santo? So, sabi ko kay Richard, at that time, buhay pa po si Richard. Richard, maghanap ka ng coin. Hanap siya, piso. Sabi ko, maliit yan yung 10 piso. Balik siya. Nung ako na nagsalita, sabi ko, ladies and gentlemen, ang nauna pong speaker natin ay dating ambassador po natin sa Vatican. Ay wala po ako doon sa kalingkingan niya. But, ang pinagsasabi po niya, one good Comelec, is only one side of the coin. I'm here to talk about the other side of the coin. The one very bad Comelec. Ayun, nagpalakpakan yung audience. As I know, akin na yung audience. I know, akin na yung audience. Ganun yun. Hindi po magbabasa sa teleprompter na pati greetings ay nakasulat doon at babasahin. Oo. Because it should come out naturally. So, yun. Gusto kong kung ganun po mga kababayan.
Teleprompter na yun.
Ang teleprompter. Attorney Trixie, ang teleprompter po ang nangampan niya.
Yeah.
At si Lenny Robredo ay amplifier lamang.
Alam mo, the way I see it, bakit naka-teleprompter yan? Aside from the fact that she's obviously a very bad extemporaneous speaker. You need to be smart. Anyway,
I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Her staff had to control the bad speech habits. Yung paulit-ulit.
Oh, yes.
Diba?
That's one thing.
Diba?
But there's another one.
Which one?
I think...
The lack of depth.
No. It's intended para hindi siya mawala. At hindi siya magkamali sa kanyang sasabihin. Di ba? Kumbaga, kinural mo na. Binakod mo na yung sasabihin mo. Scripted. Binakod mo na yung sasabihin mo sa publiko. Because you cannot do it extemporaneously because otherwise baka lumihis ka at mapuri mo pa si BBM.
Di ba yung ginagamit na term about her is lutang?
Oh, yung lutang. Lutang.
Parang hindi lulutang-lutang dyan.
Kaya nga, Attorney Trixie, mga kababayan, sabi ko nga po, my verdict is she's not fit to be president of this country. Mas okay pa yata kay Lenny Robredo, forgive me, kung mag-reader na lang po siya sa banal na kasulatan sa pulpito ng simbahan.
Correct. As long as hindi siya yung magsisermon, okay siya.
Kaysa, she will assume to take the lead and plunge us all into darkness.
Totoo. Can you imagine yung kung lulutang-lutang siya makipag-usap, let's say, sa Chinese premier?
Hindi. Pag nakaharap niya yung Chinese premier, may teleprompter dito sa kabila.
O kaya yung magtanim na lang na kunwaring interpreter. So no matter what she says, yung interpreter, babaguhin na lang niya yung sinabi.
Magdala siya ng interpreter well, that's better.
Tutor actually.
Ang interpreter, siya ang nag-memorize ng content. Oo.
Yung mas may alam.
So, si Lenny, maala na siya, lulutang siya doon. Basta yung interpreter, officially, yun ang posisyon ng Pilipinas. Well, that's really bad. We need a president who can really articulate his views. And I think that's BBM. So,
who knows how to plan at hindi mag-high heels pag alam niyang tatayo siya ng 3 oras. Or even worse, naka-high heels na nga, pagod na nga siya at namamagana yung paa, hindi pa rin niya ginamit yung upuan na na-provide sa kanya sa likod.
Is that the debate?
Yeah.
Parang nakita ko naka-high heels
She posted kasi na leadership is showing up even in the difficult times, even if it means standing for 3 hours in high heels.
Pero sinabi niya yun?
Nasa post niya sa Twitter niya.
Okay, wait. Ano daw?
Wow,
leadership is all about showing in the most difficult of times. Why is a debate considered one of the most difficult of times?
Excuse me, para sa kanya, difficult.
Yun na nga. Kasi walang teleprompter.
Kasi,
Attorney Trixie, walang teleprompter. So para sa kanya, it's one of the most difficult times for her.
It counts as a difficult time.
It's a difficult time for her. But mind you, mga kababayan, pag sinabi po nating presidential debates, it does not necessarily mean that it is truly a debate. Okay. It does not necessarily mean that it is one of the most crucial times by which leadership can be manifested in public. No, because there are presidential debates that are actually for shows. Yung nireklamo ni Doc Willie Ong. Di ba? Nakita natin yon.
For the views.
For the views.
For the hits.
So, kailangan, itong sabi yung Attorney Trixie, yung kailangan makiliti mo yung tao.
Yes,
or something like that, dapat makiliti mo yung tao.
Stimulate.
Para Kaya pala nagwala doon si Walvin Bello. Oo, may mga idiots siya, may coward siya.
Effing so-and-so, ganyan.
Yeah,
because they have no effing program.
Kaya nga, ang tawag ko sa kanya, expletive spewing Walden Bello. Kasi, siguro, inudyukan siya.
Sayang, because I happen to, I've met him at least once or twice. He actually reads me. Can you imagine? Kaya siya galit. But before, how do we call this? AD. ante-Duterte, before Duterte.
Oh, okay.
He would read my Facebook. Magkasundo pa kami nun. But then, syempre, naghiwalay na kami ng landas. He does have good ideas. He does understand the need for justice to prevent insurgencies. He knows what he's talking about. The problem is, minsan, either out of control or kailangan niya, naintindihan nila yung effective communication. Bahagi yan ng mga ng leftist curriculum. Because,
standard yata nila yan eh.
You need a soapbox eh. Kailangan mapilit mo yung mga tao na makinig sa'yo. And how do you do that? Lalakasan mo boses mo.
Yes.
Diba pagka nasa rally ka, tayo ka sa stage.
Magsisigaw ka doon.
Sisigaw ka. Kahit wala kang sinasabi, pasigaw. Yay! Everybody cheers for you.
Idiots, cowards, like that.
Style kalye yan. So, yung mga ganyan yan. Exactly. These two idiots, they have to, otherwise, he would make sense. But, the thing is, he goes after, masyadong aggressive, hindi niya kinonsider yung kanyang platform. On social media.
The audience itself, remember, in every exposition, extemporaneous speaking, hindi lang ikaw. It's not only the speaker who should consider himself the most important is your audience. Hindi mo ma-turn off yung audience mo.
Yeah.
Because ako, pag gumamit ka ng mga ganyan, automatically I shut you off.
Yep.
Because I'm here to listen to your ideas, not your expletives.
Yeah, exactly. Besides, you already got my attention, ba't ka pa nagmumura?
Oo nga. Hindi kasi inodyokan eh.
Exactly.
Kailangan there must be sparks flying para tumas yung viewership.
Credibility of these debate formats.
Now, going from this debate na sinabi ni... Okay, we have... going from this debate na sinabi ni reklamo ni Doc Willie Ong, and that's one of the rarest times na nakikita ko siyang nagre-reklamo.
Kasi mabait yan si Doc
mabait siya,
Willie.
Mabait siya. Pero this time, nagreklamo. I mean, it's actually, pinalabas niya yung hinanaing niya. Now, the COMELEC debates, okay, pinalaki naman nila Rappler na hindi sisipot si BBM, hindi pupunta si BBM. And then I found out na yung moderator pala doon ay si Raisa Robles na kalaban ni Larry Gadon at si Maria Ressa. So mga kababayan, what can BBM expect there? Kung pupunta siya doon, he will just simply be bashed by these two moderators.
Exactly.
Or
they will ask pointed questions.
Yes.
Calculated to embarrass them.
To embarrass him or to whatever. Basta ang point nila, ang purpose nila is to bring him down.
Correct.
So, under that circumstances, kung hindi sisipot si BBM, hindi pupunta si BBM, that would be plainly justified. Kasi, yung mga arch critics niya ang nandun eh. Sila ang binigyan ng COMELEC ng papel eh. And this, I believe, is part of that memorandum of agreement.
Yeah. So, but since you brought up the teleprompter, can I bring up the rap?
Okay.
Kasi she was so, speaking so quickly, tapos, pero in a monotone. Like, it seemed, the problem is if you're not a communicator, you will not keep track of the tone. Kasi you have to vary your inflections.
Kasi kung nag-memorize ka, ang tendency is,
raratratin mo.
Monotone mo yan eh. Kasi, matatakot kang mawala ka doon sa yung train of thought mo. So, ang natural tendency is, para kang robot dyan na nagsasalita. Oo. Tuloy-tuloy lang. Kasi, ang attention mo, nakafocus doon sa minimorize mo.
Correct. Parang yung, naalala mo, nung nag-aaral ako sa bar, yung feeling ko, lahat ng knowledge dito, ayoko madapa kasi baka matapon lahat. Parang gano'n yun.
Pag nadapa ka, baka yung lahat na nandito sa ulo mo.
Makalimutan.
Pag nadapa ka, baka ma-disarrange. Ganon din yung speaker na nag-memorize. Oo, kasi ayaw niyang, siguro, walang inflection sa voice. Hindi yan, wala ding, di ba, yung actions. Wala rin kasi, natatakot, baka ma-disarrange.
Baka pag tumigil siya, Ay, ano na nga ba yung susunod?
Baka walang teleprompter sa harap.
May tawag doon, kabisote! sa law school, professor kami na, recitation, okay. Miss Cruz! Miss Cruz! Bakit po? Ganyan. Answer ka, ganyan. Hindi kasi ako nag-memorize. Pag tawag dun sa isang klase, sagot niya, dinumero talaga. Kung ano yung sulat ng batas, yun ang sagot niya. I also have
a classmate like that. Nainggit ako kasi memoryado niya, pati kama kung nasaan.
Correct. Ngayon, tanong ng professor, bakit ganito? Dapat i-relate mo dun sa kaso, dun sa decision ng Supreme Court. Succession to eh. Nang pag ganon, sabi ko na nga ba eh. Sabi ni si Daddy Con. Alam mo kung anong tawag sa'yo? Kabisote! Upo! 5 ka pa. Ganyan.
I was a classmate like that. Pero sabi niya sa akin, alam mo Glenn, pag hindi ko, sa Cebu, pag hindi ko na talaga alam yung sagot, ang batas na lang isusulat ko, pumasa naman sa bar.
Well, you can't go wrong with the law.
Yeah. Pero magaling talaga mag-memorize yun. Pero kahit ako, naiinggit ako kasi hindi ko naman minimorize yung batas eh. I just get the substance and then i-relate ko lang.
Kay Ma'am Heidi, ang prof no, Heidi Yora, pati kama.
Iba yun.
Kama tatanungin
iba
niya.
Yun siya, oo.
Professor kami, ano yung number dun sa dulo? Kasi amended yung batas, di ba? So may number dun sa dulo. Yung number na yun corresponds to the amended provision of the previous law.
Especially labor law. Sa labor code, maraming ganyan.
Pag tinanong ka, sige kabisote ka pala. Ano yung numero dun sa dulo? Hindi na talaga ako babalik sa law school.
Grabe.
Kaso si Madam Lenny parang law school. Yung ginawa niyang memorized.
Memorize. Pati nga yung sa CNN debate, di ba parang memorized yun eh. Di ba sabi nila, the questions were given in advance? Ay, hindi po debate yun, mga kababayan. Pag ang questions po ay given in advance, it's not a debate, it's a show. Kaya nga, pinamemorya sa kanila para hindi magkamali. Well, hindi po ganyan ang leadership. That's not the presidency. That's not what the presidency is all about. Memorizing things, putting on a show. That's not what it is. It takes to be president of the Philippines. So yung mga sumali doon, hindi ko iboboto talaga yun. Yung hindi sumali, yun ang iboboto ko.
Okay.
Kasi hindi siya sumabay sa show.
Last patawala remark. May humihirit sa atin. Masyado daw tayo mapanghusga. Magkano daw binayad ni BBM sa atin?
Excuse me? Ito alam ko, hindi to...
Pag ikaw dinimanda ko, magpatunay ka ha?
Alam ko, I can vouch for you. Sa Attorney Trix, hindi yan mabibili. Ako sinubukan akong bilhin ni Comelec at Smartmatic, sinampal ko sila.
Sige.
Walang presyo ang prinsipyo namin dito.
Tandaan mo, pag sinabi mo pa yan uli, may oras na ako ha. Galingan mo. And on that note, maraming salamat sa pagsubaybay sa Karambola nitong araw na ito. Ang tabayan ng susunod na programa In the Heart of Business with Mama Rupahati sa inyo. Gagni, ito ni Glenn.
Hanggang sa next Tuesday po.
Thank you. See you tomorrow on Karambola. Ako po si Trixie Cruz Angeles.
Tambayan sa DWIZ.